Both guys have an OPS right around 800. Both guys are well below average defensively, according to all kinds of metrics. One of them is an all-star being hailed for having a great season, and the other one is increasingly being, almost vilified, as if he's part of the problem, and I'm here to get really plain about this today. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Rangers 4, Pirates 3 last night in Arlington, Texas. Luis Ortiz gave up a couple of home runs to Corey Seager. Jared Triolo hit a 3-run shot that pulled the Pirates within one, and then that was it. That's now 12 losses in the last 14 games, and blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about stuff that actually projects reasonably into the future. Bryan Reynolds is having a nice season. I'm definitely not dumping on it. All-star, 826 OPS. He's also, by most objective standards, not a very good defensive outfielder. It doesn't necessarily show to the naked eye because you don't see him making mistakes with the baseball, whereas it's much more challenging to gauge, the ability to track a ball down, speed and range and all that other stuff. But he's credited, and rightly so, for being the good ball player that he is. Very good ball player. Now contrast that, though, with probably more than half of what I'm seeing, hearing, and reading related to Oneil Cruz, as if he's somehow responsible for the downfall of this entire operation. No, seriously, I'm on the subway the other night. Coming back from the Steelers game, there's someone on the train who recognizes me, and he just decides to start talking about baseball. The very first thing that comes from him is, what's wrong with Cruz? How are they going to deal with that? And that doesn't mean that that was the only thing this individual thinks about the Pirates or baseball, but it was the first thing that came to mind, and usually that carries some meaning. Well, here's what I've got in return, and I wish I'd had this on the subway, but I don't. Cruz is currently slashing .259, .315 on base percentage, .463 slugging percentage, a .779 OPS. That's within roughly 40 points of where Reynolds is. It's second best on the team among hitters with enough plate appearances to qualify for the batting title. He's got 18 home runs, 62 RBIs. He's walked 29 times, and bear in mind that this is someone for whom that was thought to be an issue throughout his development, both in Pittsburgh and Los Angeles. And although he's made the errors that he's made, he's also turned some plays that, if we're being real here, he shouldn't have turned, and others wouldn't have turned, mostly because of that ridiculous arm. Now, you can think what you want about those numbers, but is he your problem? If so, this team could use more problems in that mold. Does he lapse out every once in a while? Yeah. Not running out of the box in any situation, even though he's been trying to protect the ankle all season. It's never a good look. But Rowdy Tellez has done it more than once this season, and almost no reaction followed each of those occasions. Heck, it happened to Reynolds the other day. A remarkable rarity, but it did. Pop-ups have fallen in the outfield. Cruz hasn't always handled those particularly well. But does that make him, the problem or part of the problem as opposed to being a robust positive for this team? And then there's the intangible. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but I'm not new to this process. And in fact, I'm sure that there are a lot of people listening who are a lot older than me who remember that in his early days, Roberto Clemente was labeled a certain way because he didn't know English or because of more nefarious things. We watched that play out here for years with Starling Marte, who was never close to being appreciated the way he should have been, commensurate to his numbers, because every once in a while you'd see something you didn't like, and then you didn't hear him explain it, or you didn't hear him joking about it or whatever, because he wouldn't do interviews without an interpreter in his earlier years. Cruz, similarly, you see him joking, you see that big smile of his, and it can look like he's not necessarily taking things seriously. You see him joking around with guys from the other team, makes him appear, I'm sure, to some non-competitive. Whereas you might not be thinking things like that if you heard him speak in English, or if he was fluent in English, or whatever. Here's what I'm saying on this today. I don't like it. I don't find it fair. I don't find it to be even accurate to paint Cruz as some sort of problem. Now, I say this acknowledging that I have an obvious advantage in that I'm communicating with him just fine, by the way, on a daily basis, and I've grown to really appreciate him, especially after he battled back the way he did from that horrific ankle injury. Notice that nobody says or points out, incidentally, that he went down hard on that same ankle the other night at PNC Park. Derek Shelton acknowledged to me after the game that it was related to that original injury. Guess who was right back in the lineup the very next afternoon? Maybe we should talk about that too. When we come back, J1Q.
This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Dawn, who says, DK, if you're going to tank, then why not at least try some different stuff? Sit Yasmani Grandal, Rowdy Tellez, put Oneil, Cruz in the outfield, bring Henry Davis back, give Bubba Chandler a start, something, anything. I'm going to guess here, Dawn, that your comment is at least partially motivated by wanting to be more invested and or entertained by the remainder of these games. Am I right? Okay, that's all right. That's all right. Sports are supposed to be entertainment. Following your favorite team is supposed to be fun. And this isn't fun. When Grandal hits a home run, as he did over the weekend against the Mariners, you go, okay, yeah, big deal. I don't even want him on the team. But if Henry comes back up and hits one, you can start daydreaming again about a number one overall pick, performing like a number one overall pick. And it's exciting. It's invigorating. From a practical standpoint, though, and boy, I haven't taken Ben Cherington's side on many of his decisions at all over the past couple of seasons. I wouldn't be ready to do that, and I don't think Cherington should be either. We're now 4.5 months into this schedule. At around the 4-month mark, the Pirates were in the race. They were contending. It wasn't a figment of anybody's imagination. It wasn't hope. It wasn't a projection. It was right there in the bleeping standings. And part of the reason for that was that they had just gone on a pretty nice roll there through the better part of July. And for all the times that you hear me picking apart every syllable that Cherington speaks to us media types, I appreciate what he had to say on this specific subject this past weekend in laying out that, look, we just lost a bunch in a row, but we've also won a bunch in a row right before that. Not going to sit here and rule out that we could still win a bunch in a row. Look, this guy doesn't show many competitive streaks. I'm not going to rip him for the one time it looks like he's actually interested in winning the games that are being played right in front of him. You know what I'm saying? But I do think the time is going to come. Whether it's the players that you mentioned, the ones in Indianapolis, whether it's a Davis or Chandler or whoever, we'll see. I would hope that everyone knows that the rules have changed on September call-ups now. It's not unlimited. You can just bring up a couple of guys. That's it. So since one of those guys is always a catcher, you always want to carry 3 catchers through September, it makes all the sense in the world that Henry would come back. I wouldn't presume the same about Chandler because he's young. He's going to have an innings count issue. He's already done a whole lot of leaping of levels. And I'm looking back at your submission here. Yeah, Cruz in the outfield, no. No, you're not doing that in midseason, especially not when you've seen him struggling on that ankle now. But I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.